My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of About Time. And I know what you're thinking, that it's about time I reviewed it. But this movie is an underrated gem. In fact, after watching it again a couple days ago, I'm going to go ahead and say that this has become one of my favorite movies. I just love it to that degree. Let's begin talking about the cast because the entire cast does a wonderful job. Domhnall Gleeson is absolutely incredible in this movie. This is a kind of performance that doesn't get the recognition it deserves, and I think that's a real shame because he is just delivering on all cylinders here. He's incredibly charming and funny and just impossible not to love. And I love the character Tim. There's a point early on where he gives something up in order to help a friend, and I really like that about him. Rachel McAdams is also incredible, and she's also hilarious and charming in this movie. It's impossible not to fall in love with her when she's on screen, and the relationship that these two have feels very genuine. The chemistry between them just feels very natural, and the back and forth I just absolutely adored. Bill Nye is also in this movie, and I love him as an actor. In fact, I think he should have won an Oscar for Davy Jones. That is just one of the best villain performances ever. And he's great in this movie. He has a bit more to do in the second half, but whenever he's on screen, he hits every single beat he needs to. Then you've got Lydia Wilson, whose character might be a little underwritten, but she just brings so much to it. Just in the way she talks and moves, you understand what kind of person she is. She just brings that level of performance here. And I also really liked Lindsay Duncan in the short time she's in this movie. She doesn't have a ton to do, but once again, she's good when she is on the screen. You've also got Richard Cordry, who I think does a good job. Joshua McGuire, that whenever he was on screen, I thought he was Todd from Community, but he isn't. You've also got Tom Hollander, who played Beckett in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So you got Beckett and Davy Jones back together, but Tom Hollander, he's just absolutely hilarious in this movie whenever he's on screen. Margot Robbie, this is the first big movie she was in, and I'm not the biggest Margot Robbie fan, but she does do a good job here, and I think this movie is incredibly well directed by Richard Curtis. He's just so sincere in everything he brings to this movie. This movie wears its heart on its sleeve, and it's not ashamed of it. Just the amount of genuine warmth he's able to bring to it really allows it to stand out. I think this movie is charming, sweet, and it just feels like a warm hug. I also found this movie to be absolutely hilarious. Like, there are some moments that got me laughing pretty good. Like, there's one scene where Rachel McAdams is trying to pick out a dress, and just that entire scene I think is just fantastic, and just so many of the lines I found to be really funny. And this movie's also got a great soundtrack. It does bring a sentimental feel to this movie, but I think it really works in what the movie is going for. There's two songs that I especially love the use of. The first one is How Long Can I Love You? I think that's a fantastic song. And the song The Luckiest is also a great song. So this movie's got that going for it. And this movie also does two things which I'm not typically a fan of, but this movie pulls it off. And the first one is narration. I think it really works for this movie, and I don't say that often. And number two is the main character telling the audience exactly what this movie is about. And once again, typically I hate that, but it works for this kind of movie. And I really love the story on display. I love the first scene where we get introduced to all these characters, and just Domhnall Gleeson's delivery is pitch perfect. There's one line where he's like, I'm too tall, too skinny, too orange. Love that. But this movie starts off as a simple romantic comedy, but as the movie progresses, it slowly transitions into being a movie just about life in general. And I really like how this movie evolves. I think it's incredibly well done. And I love the time traveling angle of this movie. I love how this movie doesn't get caught up in all these rules and the butterfly effect. This movie knows what it's trying to do, and it focuses on the story and the characters. And I absolutely adore that about it. It could have been a big old convoluted mess, but instead, it always remains focused, and because of that, it really works. I'm not watching this movie being like, well, if he goes back in time there, then when he goes back, wouldn't it mean that all of this changes? No, the movie doesn't do that, and thank God it doesn't, and I love that. There's also one thing this movie does with time travel in the last act of this movie, which I've never seen done in a time traveling movie before, and you can't say that all too often. And it provides some much needed emotional stakes, and it also provides some thematic depths. So I really like what they did there. But I just love how this movie uses time travel to just tell a story about life. And it succeeds in that. The main romance between Tim and Mary I found to be incredibly sweet, and I just fell in love with these two as a couple. But I also found this movie to be a very strong father-son story. There are some scenes in this movie that just tug at your heartstrings so damn hard. And there are just so many moving sequences. And this movie manages to be about so many things. Like, there's an aspect of this movie where it's about the fact that you can't manipulate things. If you want things to work, you've got to let them evolve naturally. And I think the way the movie explores that is very effective. And just everything this movie is trying to say about life, I found to be very profound. It's a movie that recognizes the beauty of life. I love how it tells you to enjoy the small things in life. To enjoy the time you spend with people. Because we all have limited time on this planet. And you've got to make the most of it. And it easily could have been a cliche message, but just the amount of charm and just how sincere the writing and directing is, I found to be really effective. By the time it ends, you're just left in tears, just blown away by what you just experienced. There's one line in the end of this movie that I absolutely love. My extraordinary, ordinary life. It sounds like just a throwaway line, but when you actually look at it, there's a lot of depth there. How there's beauty to be found in the ordinary. And I just found this movie to be incredibly moving, emotional, and it just hits me in every single way. This is a movie that not a lot of people talk about. I think it's at 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. It didn't make a lot at the box office, but my goodness, it deserves so much more love than it got. It's not just an incredibly romantic and sweet and charming and hilarious movie with an absolute wonderful cast. It's not just a profound emotional movie, but it's a movie that makes me want to be a better person. It's a movie that makes me want to tell the people in my life that I love them. It's a movie that actually makes me want to appreciate life and just everything in it. Take some time and appreciate the small things. And I can't say that about very many movies. And that's how you know this one is something special. So I'm going to go ahead and give About Time a 9 out of 10. If you haven't seen this movie, it's about time you check it out. But have you seen About Time? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.